In November of 1851, the left wing of the 5th Infantry were sent to establish a post on the Clear Fork of the Brazos River at a place known as Phantom Hill. Several days into the march, a Texas Blue Norther struck the line of soldiers. The temperatures dropped quickly, and the wind howled through the low trees. One teamster and 27 mule and oxen froze to death in the sudden cold. On November 14, 1851, the soldiers arrived at Phantom Hill. The order of business was setting up camp and building the new fort. Lieutenant Clinton W. Lear wrote his wife that Phantom Hill was beautiful and the countryside was alive with deer, turkey, and bear. As time passed, the letters told of the soldiers' difficulties living on the isolated frontier. The weather made life at Fort Phantom Hill even more difficult to endure. In the winter, the severe northers blew in with freezing temperatures. The heat in the summer was often over 100 degrees. There was never enough rain and often not enough grass to feed the horse and cattle at the fort. There were hailstorms and tornadoes in the spring and fall, ice and snow in the winter, and the winds seemed to never stop blowing. By April of 1852, 284 officers and men were assigned to the fort. Nearly all supplies had to be brought to Fort Phantom Hill from several hundred miles away by wagon, and often arrived late, if at all. The soldiers were as hungry as the animals. The water near the fort was full of minerals and tasted bad. Good water had to be hauled from a small spring 4 miles away. A deep well was dug on the fort compound, but was often ran dry. In addition to building the fort, soldiers were responsible for guarding the frontier and keeping travelers and settlers safe from Comanche raiding parties. The fort lay at the south edge of the Comanche buffalo hunting grounds, and most contact between the soldiers and Comanche was friendly. The Comanche chief Buffalo Hump was a regular visitor at Fort Phantom Hill. In September 1853, life at the fort began to change. Under the command of Major Henry H. Sibley, a wagon was attacked by Comanche, where Jane Wilson was taken captive, and the wagon driver scalped and left for dead. Wilson escaped the Comanche and hid until she was finally rescued by traders. Several other raiding incidents on the wagon trains occurred during this year. The mood at the fort changed drastically with the murder of the Indian agent Jesse Stem by a group of Indians in February of 1854. Major Sibley was called with his mounted dragoons to chase the killers. In March, First Lieutenant Newton C. Givens, one of Sibley's officers, returned to Fort Phantom Hill and took over command from Major Sibley. Givens' command was the last at the fort and lasted just over a month. Givens gave the order for his troops to abandon the fort and declared it done on April 4th, 1854. Soon after leaving the fort, Givens was brought before military court for burning Fort Phantom Hill as he left with his small garrison of troops. He was acquitted in the first court-martial and given a 9-month suspension in the second. Fort Phantom Hill was severely damaged by the fire, but continued to be used for decades as a gathering point for the Butterfield stage, cowboys and cattle herds on the Goodnight Loving Trail, buffalo hunters and traders, the U.S. Army Mounted Patrol from Forts Concho and Fort Griffin, and finally the citizens of nearby small towns. The Fort Phantom Foundation acquired this site in 1997 from Mr. and Mrs. Jim Alexander, who had purchased the land and opened it to the public in 1972. This land is still maintained by employees of the Jim Alexander estate in conjunction with the Fort Phantom Foundation. Fort Phantom Hill is located in Jones County, 12 miles north of Abilene, Texas, on FM 600. Most of this information was provided by Fort Phantom Foundation for educational purposes. Well, guys, that's about all I have on this fort. Let me know in the comments whether you liked it or hated it or just really didn't care. It all counts. If there's other forts that you'd like to see, let me know and I'll try to make plans to go and check them out and get some information on them. I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed going and getting it and making it. And until next time, this is just Robert. Y'all keep watching and we'll go visit the magazine across the street. That's where they kept all the explosives, way away from where they lived. Anyway, this is just Robert, and I'm gonna get out of here. Y'all have a good day.